Hey, so I just wanted to make a video kind of talking about my take on all of these recent changes and decisions and updates that the Bazaar team has announced and communicated in light of the open beta launch, specifically around monetization and all of that good stuff. So I want to front load by saying that, I think Bazaar is an amazing game. I think that it is one of the most fun and addicting games I played in a very long time. And there's a very limited set of games that I am actually willing to get addicted to in the way that I've, gotten addicted to the Bazaar. So I think, what they've done is amazing. I think it combines a lot of the aspects of a bunch of other games that I've loved, and it's clearly drawn inspiration from, Teamfight Tactics and Hearthstone and Slay the Spire. And so I think they've really come up with an amazing product and model in that regard. So that's what I wanted to say, get out of the way. I'll also say that I'm not necessarily an amazing Bazaar player. It's not a video trying to convince you guys I'm the expert in the Bazaar and balance and all that stuff. I do play the game a lot. I'm very knowledgeable, I would say, about the current version of the game. And I am top 100 legend, so at least I have played enough and won enough to get to that point. What I will say, and I also kind of should just also front load that I'm not some sort of expert on building companies around games or game companies. I've never built a game company, never brought a game company to market. So, there's nuances and considerations there that obviously I'm totally ignorant to, and I'm not trying to argue that I know all the things. What I will say is that I do have some experience with games. I've played a lot of them, but I've also built quite a few across multiple platforms and in different languages. And I've even written three or four of my own game engines from scratch in assembly language and C, starting from when I was 16 years old. So I do understand the process of developing games quite well. I think the other thing that's probably even more important than that is that I have a lot of experience with entrepreneurship. I've been an early employee or co-founder type in a number of startups. And most recently I was a very early employee number 5. And essentially the COO or head of product for a company that ended up being worth over $1 billion while I was still there, and at one point while I was still in charge of things. So, I do have experience bringing a product to market, and as part of that job, I was responsible for many things, at least the high level of monetization strategy, what the pricing is, what our go-to-market strategy is, or how do we actually bring our product to people that are going to be able to pay us, how do we find those people, but also the things how do we announce the product? How do we do a public press release? Communicate with customers? Do customer relations, support, all of that stuff. It was all either a direct responsibility of mine at some point, or I had people working for me that was responsible for that. So I have some experience there. I have some experience when it comes to startup companies and building companies, and how you can get customers to love what you do and love you, and love the experience that you give them. So a lot of my feedback is going to be coming from that angle. But I want to start by talking a bit on the monetization front specifically. And what I'll say, just generically, is that pricing a product is probably the hardest thing about any product, maybe even harder than actually building the product itself, in some regards. I don't think there's a pricing model that exists that everybody will be happy with. There's ones that are much, much closer to that, but as with all things, someone is always going to have a problem with it. So I don't think that the goal should ever be that everyone's totally and universally happy. I don't even know if the goal that it should be that people are happy. I'm not even going to argue that. I'm not trying to say that these people should be altruistic or anything like that. It's just not interesting to me because it's not the way the real world works. But I do think there's ways that you can do it that don't shoot yourself in the foot. That actually end up making you the most money possible and making your customers as happy as possible, because happy customers want to spend more money. And the thing is that at some level you can absolutely make a lot of money just by getting people addicted, and they literally can't not spend money, and that's how heroin works. But that's generally not a sustainable good moat for your business. That's not the way that you want to dominate the world, so to speak, or anything like that. So I will say that within games specifically, there's lots of ways to do monetization, but there are some models and there's some companies that have historically been able to do a really great job, and very profitably, might I add. So I think the most pinnacle example, at least historically, was Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is a very popular game, one of the most popular online games in the world. They make an absurd amount of money, I assure you. And the thing is that they do not sell anything. There's no way to spend money in that game that gives you a competitive advantage. All of the guns, they are unlocked automatically as long as you pay for the game. I think at this point you don't even need to pay for the game. I think the game is free, but at the time when I played, it was like $10 or something like that, which now just seems like absurdly low, but that's what it was. The only thing you can buy in Counter-Strike are skins, they're cosmetics. And, you know, of all the different types of complaints that I hear about, you know, monetization systems, people complaining that cosmetics aren't free are the one that I identify with the least. To me, the whole thing is the integrity of the game should be the only thing that we never compromise on. Anything outside of that, do whatever you want, in my opinion. And so, you know, in Counter-Strike, I think they did a really amazing job with it, not only in the sense that they didn't ever infringe on the integrity of the game, as far as I know, but even more than that, like, the cosmetics are pretty great. Like, I wanted them. I was happy. There was a way to even get them without spending money. So, like, it felt pretty awesome. And, you know, sometimes you could get a cosmetic that was even worth a lot of money in real life. Now, unless you're doing some semi-illicit stuff, you can't get that money off of the Steam platform. But, like, the idea that, you know, you could get lucky in one round of Counter-Strike that you're playing for free, and that round could result in you not having to pay for any Steam games that you want for, like, the next year, is bonkers. That's amazing. And again, this is a company and a product that's making a lot of money. They're not losing money on Counter-Strike, guys. This is a very profitable line of business for them. So the idea that this model can't succeed, let's just put that first. Flat out crazy. And just anyone who argues that is in bad faith and also probably just stupid. So that's the first thing. Now, there's models that are not even this pure cosmetic, no integrity infringement that I think are also still pretty great. Another example, a game that's near and dear to my heart, although less recently with the way they've done things, is Path of Exile. Path of Exile is a perfect example where, yeah, they do sell cosmetics. That's primarily what they sell. But they have a component which they sell which does actually affect the way you play the game. And it's like quality of life things, like stash tabs. Now, some people would argue that this does infect like the integrity of the game, like, you know, that stash tabs give you a competitive advantage. And I think there's probably good rationale. I think that argument is somewhat valid. I think the level of validity is pretty low. I think that, you know, in most situations, if you're a really good player and you're really dedicated, you probably will only be slightly disadvantaged by not having stash tabs. And it will never be in the core gameplay loop of the game of like, when I'm on a map with my character killing monsters, oh, I didn't buy that upgrade, so now I'm going to do work. No. It's like, I think that I'm speedrunning for a world record, and if I had an extra stash tab, I could maybe be 5% faster than the guy who does. And that's pretty fair. I think that's a fair argument. Now, this is a very small subset of very elite players, and I would argue they should just buy the stash tab, right? But the main thing to you know, kind of hammer on there is that for like 99.99% of players, stash tabs in Path of Exile are a like quality of life. They're annoying to not have. And I think that's kind of, I mean, as a capitalist in some level, that's a great, I think it's awesome. Because customers are never resentful about the stash tab things. I mean, not never, but I think it's very uncommon in the PoE community that people have this negative sentiment about their monetization. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's exactly how it should be. So, I think PoE is sort of like, you know, it's not clearly as pure as Counter-Strike, but it is definitely still awesome. I think it's great. Now, you can get even into the more of like, you know, questionable territory, but where I still think, I don't know if it's good, but it's, you know what you're getting into. It's very obvious and it's very honest about it. And I think that would be like League of Legends. Now, I have not played League of Legends, full disclosure, for like years, but I played League of Legends a lot for like the first 5 years. And at least back then at the time, and we're not going to talk about runes and stuff for those people who know what that was. We're just going to talk about like characters and skins, because that is their primary mechanism of monetization historically. So at the time, you know, the only thing that could give you a competitive advantage in League of Legends versus another player, other than just being better, was having certain characters unlocked that you know, other people didn't, or you know, playing a certain character that was very strong at the moment that required you to unlock it. And I do think this was truly a competitive advantage. Many times, there's a sort of meme within the League of Legends community for a long time that like, yeah, the new hero that's released is obviously going to be super strong. And I think that's a matter of power creep, not even necessarily them trying to like milk people for money, but I think it's very hard when you have a game like that to release new characters that are interesting and are not bad, that also don't like have some sort of power creep, and increased power over other players. So I think that that's a case where, that's not ideal. But the reason why I say that it's not that bad, is that, first and foremost, there is a like in-game currency for League of Legends. At the time it was called IP. I think it's like some blue or red crap now, it doesn't matter. And the whole thing is that on the day of a new hero being released, if you had the points saved up, and it was like upmarked, it was basically, it cost more initially for the in-game currency to buy a new hero, but it was still possible to buy a new hero without spending any money, assuming that you had farmed enough points. Now, farming points was really abysmal, it was very slow, I'm not going to try to argue any of that, but like, the end of the day, if you wanted to stay competitive and you really cared and you didn't want to spend money, that was totally possible within League of Legends. And I think that, of the bad models, it's the best, because most of the time, if you're playing a lot and you're playing competitive, honestly, you already had all the characters unlocked except for the new one anyway, and you probably had enough points saved up because, like, unless you feel a need to buy skins, which again is non-functional, you probably should have enough saved up to buy the new character by the time it comes out, because they're only coming out once every 2 months or something like that. And, in some cases, if the character is like, say, a support character and you're exclusively a top lane player, you don't even need to buy it. So now you get to save up all those points for the next character that maybe is the one that you want. So I think it's like, again, fairly easy to stay competitive without having to do any of that. It was also really straightforward because the whole basis was, I want to be competitive in this game. What do? I spend money on this one thing. And if I come in and I haven't been playing and I want to catch up, I have to spend this fixed amount of money to buy all the characters in worst case scenario. And then the ongoing cost of the game is like $10 every 2 months or something, which sure, money is money. I'm not going to argue if that's a small or a large amount. It's all based on, the context of your life and everything. But it was well defined and it was very clear what you were getting into. I think that moving into the Bazaar, they have done the worst of every model. They have truly not, like, even just from the pricing strategy point of view, let's ignore like what feels good as a player and as a consumer and all that. As a strategy move from a pricing standpoint, the number one thing that every single person will tell you in the industry when you ask, what is the most important thing when I'm coming up with a pricing model for a product? It's simple. It's simple. People will willingly pay more for something if it just is simple. And you know what simple usually translates to in products that are priced is less pricing dimensions. So like the less things that you have to understand that you're paying for in order to pay for the product, the better, right? And so like, let's look at something like Netflix. Initially, and for a long time, when Netflix became very popular, there was only one thing you paid for in Netflix. That was the subscription to Netflix. You paid for the subscription to Netflix, you got all of Netflix. There's nothing else. Now, they've added since like some, upsells, like high definition and stuff like that. I don't know, I don't pay for that crap. But the answer, to the first part, which is like simple means less pricing dimensions. And so having people pay for one thing and knowing that's the only thing they have to pay for, even if it's more, is almost always better. Simply from like what can I do to get more people to spend money and get more net, revenue or whatever on my product. So that's the first thing about, pricing that, is really, really important. I think that first test is so massively failed by the Bazaar that it's kind of wild. So the first thing is that people already paid for the game. It was a beta, and I understand that it was like an early access or whatever, but I think the whole idea of paying for a beta game like this one, that you'll eventually have to pay for things in, is kind of wild anyway. Like even if you look at Path of Exile, you had to pay for Path of Exile 2 beta, but there's never a point where you have to pay for integrity components of the game. So like that is the fixed cost. You're paying for and you don't have to do that. There's no competitive advantage. The beta isn't competitive. So like that's totally fair game. Now you could still say this is beta. It's a bit different when it's open beta. I think that I don't really trust this company at this point in their messaging about beta and stuff. Beta basically means that they can get away with doing more stuff that they don't believe they would be able to get away with if they called it GA. But in their perfect world, they'd probably GA today. So the first thing is, yeah, they've not done a good job at all of clearly making it obvious what what you need to pay for and what you get out of it. And so the first thing is, yeah, we already paid for money. What was that for? I guess it was for the time, the luxury of playing their amazing game for like, 60 days. So basically it's a subscription model. We were paying a subscription. We just didn't know what the time period of the subscription was up front. That was sort of like a retroactive thing that they, gifted to us. Now, with these new monetization changes, things get real bad. What do I mean by that? Well, in the Bazaar, to be competitive, you need to have, arguably, all the characters, because, at some point in time, a character may be just objectively stronger than other characters. In the last patch, it was Vanessa. And you need to have all the items for the characters, which historically has just been inherently true if you have a character. But now, they've added a new system that allows you to add items to characters. And I'll just even open this up. It's part of the prize pass, so we're gonna go into that. And so, as you can see, when you unlock the prize pass, I think immediately, or maybe you have to still beat tier 1, you get access to this Mysteries of Deep expansion of Vanessa. Now, I'm not even going to get into whether I think this, I personally think that this is actually like a pretty bad set of cards and probably doesn't help you out very much. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's the principle of the thing. So this set of cards is arguably a competitive advantage because other players who have it, if there's good cards and good builds and you do not, you will essentially miss out. Now, the thing is, to be able to actually access this at all for the first 30 days, which in a competitive game, let's say that I don't care about the future, like the competitive environment is going on all the time. If I want to stay competitive, I have to keep playing. So in order for me to stay competitive, at minimum, I'm going to need to spend $9.99. Okay? Now, I'll be clear. If this had been like a situation where they just released this pack and it cost $9.99 and that's it, I mean, I still think it's not how I would do it, but I think it would be far more reasonable. I really don't think that this would be like the end all to be all. So yeah, the money isn't the problem. At no point in any of this talk am I going to be like trying to make the point that they shouldn't charge money for things, okay? Because it's just not. Obviously, they're going to have to do that. It's not real world. Where things get bad, okay, is not the Vanessa pack. Let's scroll down. Because on day or level 25 of the Battle Pass, you get access to the Frozen Assets Pig expansion. Now, again, I'm not Crip, but I have to say that, between these two packs, this one is clearly better. There is zero doubt. This one is at least like very cohesive. It adds a lot of new things to Pig's playstyle, and I think there's one or two items that are just objectively maybe overtuned. Like I think there's definitely a freeze item in there that is just like really, really strong. So I would say that it's totally likely that there's items in this pack that ends up being a competitive advantage to the game. Now, here's the thing. You do not get this pack when you pay $9.99, okay? In fact, in order to unlock this pack, there are only two ways. The first way is that you go through and progress through all of these levels, and as of right now, we know that the first few levels are 100 XP, and then maybe the next ones are like 200, and eventually maybe up to 500. And the biggest quest you can get right now per week is like 500. You get 3 of them. So I would say best case scenario, you do all your quests, you win like 10 games. You're not unlocking this pack in the first week. And this thing, just to be clear, after 1 month, if you have not unlocked it, you have to pay 1,000 gems for it. Which, by the way, actually, I think is a fairly reasonable price. 1,000 gems to unlock a new set of cards. I would do that right now if that was an option for me. So I actually think that's not a problem. Like, yeah, pay 1,000 gems. But after 30 days, that becomes your only option. So if I pay $9.99, but then real life happens and I can't play like multiple games per day or even a game per day, there's a chance that I don't actually unlock this pack, even though I paid the $9.99 by the end of the month, which actually seems wild. Now, the bigger issue is that let's imagine that this pack is a huge competitive advantage. Even if I pay $9.99, I'm not on even if I pay $9.99 and I'm willing to immediately just start grinding the crap out of this game, and all I do is play Bazaar in ranked, I'm at a disadvantage immediately if the pack is imbalanced. And the reason why is that there's another option. Instead of just waiting and trying to actually level through the thing you already paid for. And that's to spend your gems, an exorbitant amount, might I add, to skip all the levels. I believe the total cost is $25,000. Maybe that's the number I heard on Crip's stream. I have not bought the pack, so let's see. Yes, skip 20. Oh, so maybe it's less. Let's see here. It's 10,000. Okay, so it's 10,000 gems. So it's not 25,000. 10,000 gems is a lot of gems. As you can see, I have 3,000 gems. I just opened like 150 chests, which is way more chests than almost any other player probably will have. I have a pretty good win rate in competitive. I have bought gems like twice early on, and I bought Founders Pack, but I used them all on the characters. So I would need triple the amount of gems I have right now to skip all of these tiers if I didn't want to spend real life money, which is just infeasible. Like, outside of the fact that maybe I want to spend gems on other things like getting into ranked mode, although I would get ranked tickets for doing this, the bigger issue is that that's triple the amount of gems that a person who plays this game too much already has. That's just absolutely absurd. So the only way you're going to be able to do this is A, you play even more and you have a very high win rate like Crip or a streamer, or, now here's where things get interesting, guess what? You can buy the gems. And the gems cost probably around like 10,000 gems is I think $100. So you can pay $100 and skip the tier 25 and immediately get the cards on top of the $10 that you already spent on the pack. And now you have a competitive advantage against other players immediately. The only people that can equally compete with you if this pack is overpowered are the other people that spent $110. There is no other option unless you've stockpiled 10,000 gems, which again I think is very, very unrealistic. Very unrealistic. So this is already a very confusing pricing model because, again, if we compare it to the League of Legends model, I spend $10 and I know that I get equal competitive advantage with other players in the game. In this model, I spend $10 and then I have to earn my right to be competitive with the other players in the game. But not the ones that are also doing the same work that I'm doing. Maybe I just end up getting screwed over because the other people were able to shell out $100 and I wasn't able to. So this is just wild to me, absolutely wild. Now, the problem is, as I said, the important thing about pricing is that it's simple, okay? And so we've already added not one, but two pricing dimensions to this product because you buy the battle pass, okay? But you also probably need to, buy gems if you want to be competitive. But maybe you don't have to. Maybe there's another option that's clearly worse, but maybe it's like a middle ground between them. So now we're going to add a third pricing dimension, which is the subscription. So now this is also a subscription game, and you pay $10 a month for according to this, just in March you pay $10 a month for double prize pass XP, double ranked mode chests, Roboid Workshop, and Celebrations, its gold card back. So first of all, as a consumer, they're telling me I pay a monthly fee that I have to subscribe to that's going to be recurring, but they're not even telling me what I get every month. They're telling me what I get in this month. The month that actually, by the way, is already 5 days into it. So are they going to prorate me the $9.99? How does any of this work? Like, what do I get in April? Like, do I even have? What if there's not a prize pass in April? Like, do I just basically get double ranked mode chests? Am I paying $10 a month for double ranked mode chests? And then there's this other dimension, which is like, well, I'm obviously going to also buy the battle pass because if I'm going to pay $10 for a subscription, you better bet I'm going to pay $10 to have access to competitive advantage in the game. Well, double prize pass XP is basically a competitive advantage on the battle pass because I could arguably say, well, now I'm going to get my pig frozen deck faster, which will give me a competitive advantage in the game. So this is, again, my argument isn't that they're charging me too much money. My argument is that this is just confusing. This is making my buying decision way too hard. I want to know what is the best way for me to spend money to be equal to other players in the game. And it's not clear to me right now. Because I have to do some mental calculation of, will other people end up spending the $100? Like, how much will double? I don't know. By the way, it doesn't even say on the battle pass how much XP each tier is. We know because they've like messaged in Discord because their very formal professional strategy of announcing changes to things and updates is often like a Discord or a CDN served website on Azure, which they complain about and say Microsoft is bad. By the way, I know people who are running workloads that would make Bazaar look like a child on Azure and Microsoft. I have a feeling it's not Microsoft and Azure. It could be. But like, all the biggest banks and enterprises in the world run on Azure. And like, I don't know if you've tried to use your card and stuff recently, but it works. So generally Azure, it works pretty freaking well. It's a very high, by the way, talking about products in, businesses, Azure specifically, that have very high customer satisfaction ratings. It's that one. It's that one. People, especially developers, love Azure. Okay. So like the fact that they're complaining about it like that, and they have this thing where like they're getting absolutely torched right now on all their social media platforms, it's a bit ironic, but that's an aside. So the whole point is, I don't even know what I'm getting. I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know what to spend money on. I don't know how long it lasts. I don't know when it's going to be disrupted. And I don't even know if I'm going to be able to achieve it in the time period that I have before before I lose it all. And then I have to spend my currency that is completely disconnected or maybe connected to real life money for this thing anyway. So that basis alone is just wild to me. This whole pricing strategy, it is confusing. The fact that it's a beta game and they've already now they technically have 3 different monetization mechanisms: a subscription, a battle pass, and gems. I'm sorry. It's really bad. It's like, from a purely capitalism, ruthlessly make money from customers' point of view, long term. I'm not talking about like, can they milk people short term? Because like, that's not interesting for me. Businesses don't succeed on making short term, profits and revenue. These people have clearly never done this. Like my former boss, who was like, he found this whole topic deeply compelling and was an expert of this, doing it for companies that are worth literally hundreds of times more, thousands of times more money than the Bazaar. I think he might actually be sick to his stomach if he saw the way that they've done this. Is genuinely appalling how bad the pricing strategy and the way they rolled it out is, and how unclear what you're getting is for a game that, again, is not in a finished state. And we can get into that, but I think the entire infrastructure and basically quality of the game product itself, not in the balance and that stuff, I have my own qualms there, but like technically speaking, the actual quality of what they built is poor. Why it's a Chromium app, why it constantly crashes, why do they have all these state bugs? Like the number of times that I've had rollbacks where like it was clearly a client-side update that didn't get propagated to the server. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like that doesn't happen in any other massively multiplayer online game ever. The only time it happens in like PoE, very rarely, is like when someone DDoSes them, or like, there's a bug that they find and they have to manually roll people back. The game isn't just constantly losing your state because like they poorly coded it or whatever. It's just absolutely nuts. Okay. So first thing, like there's 2 parts of this whole video. The first is like, the monetization model is terrible. Not just because I'm annoyed that they're predatory, but more than that, they're just bad at this. They've done a terrible job of it. That's just nuts and bolts. Not trying to like shit on anyone, not trying to like, make them feel bad or anything like that. But like objectively speaking, if I was reviewing this like in a vacuum and being like, is this the best way to get long-term revenue out of this company? As an investor, I would say, no, this is not. Like I would love to be a VCR on their board right now so I could give my feedback. First thing. Now, the real problem. The one that's actually way more upsetting to me, and way more is like the reason why I'm strongly considering not continuing to play this game. Communicating with customers and building relationships with customers is the basis of any successful business. There are some very clear exceptions, but even like drug dealers, the way they make their money is by having repeat customers, okay? By having people want to go back to them and buy their product. Now, the way that you do that is by developing customer loyalty and by making customers feel joyful about their interactions with you and your product. And the way that you communicate and the frequency that you communicate and where you communicate are really huge aspects of this. I think like one of the things that has done really well for other games that are kind of in this space is meeting customers where they're at. So like, another example with Path of Exile is, especially early on, it was so common to see Path of Exile developers and employees on Reddit very openly talking about things, even talking about things which I think a lot of other people that were employees of game companies wouldn't be willing to discuss on Reddit, even when it's like unfun stuff. And I think there's a few people out there, like Subset, that like, they had a negative experience with that, and they even were vitrolic. I would say like 90% of the people I know and play with loves GGG hugely just because of that dimension. The fact that they're so willing to engage with their players and they feel like they're players themselves. It's just a huge compelling part of like being part of that game and that ecosystem. So at some level, this kind of happens in this game. Now, I don't really see them on Reddit, but I do see them on Discord. I sit on the Discord a lot, and they do have a few people that are employees, including Reynad himself, which we're going to get into, that are on the Discord. Now, I would have hoped that would be a positive, but unfortunately, it is the opposite. And we will show some very concrete examples of that. Now, the first thing that I want to kind of preface with, like from a very like formal, non-emotional, I'm a consumer of the Bazaar point of view, is that when you're an executive in a company, and that company is substantial, it is worth a lot of money, or it is important, or it has a lot of traction and awareness around it, and you need to make announcements, and you need to talk to people that are going to then talk about your product, like the press. Yeah, there's an entire set of training you go through. There's a set of rules. And like, it doesn't matter what company or what industry you work in. If you've been in a position like ones I've been in before, you receive training that was very similar to mine. I guarantee you. It's called press training or public relations training. It's usually done by like a PR agency or like a marketing person that has gone through this before. And they tell you all of these amazing things about like how to not answer a question that you don't want to answer, and like what type of questions you should answer, and like what types of things you can or can't say, and like everything. Right? And because at some level, when you're like representing a company, it's not about your opinion anymore. It's about like, how am I best representing, like, even let's ignore the capitalism and like fiduciary duty and all that kind of crap. Like, I really loved the team that I hired and that I worked with at my last company. And the idea that I would go out there and say something off the cuff that would like reflect poorly on them, I can't imagine anything more like upsetting to me. Honestly, that's like one of the most like nightmarish scenarios I can imagine, is that I go into some sort of like press briefing and I say stuff that like makes my team look bad. Like I like couldn't handle it. So this press briefing stuff is really important. And I think that even the most egotistical, self-centered, narcissistic, ruthless people that I've ever met in my life, actually, in fact, I would say those people actually understand that press briefing and press training and public relations training is important more than the other ones. Okay, because they're like, oh, I have to act a certain way to get what I want. Oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So like this thing is like pretty much totally standardized. Nobody's like kind of saying this is a bad thing. It is so obvious that I'm going to call it Reynad specifically here, because that's the only one that matters to me. He's in charge of this entire thing. It's so clear that he hasn't even heard of this shit, that it's almost like mind-blowing to me. The way that he has interacted with his users and his customers on platforms like Discord, man, it's embarrassing. Man, I can tell you that if he was working in an adult company that actually had like, tens of millions of dollars of investment, like he'd be having a real bad day. Like I would not have a job. And I was a person that was very, very difficult to fire and very unlikely to be fired. I was making the company millions of dollars. And they would have fired me if I did like 50% of the stuff that Reynad has done in a single day on Discord. And again, it's not like I'm saying that he can't be a person and he has to be a robot and all of that stuff. It's just that you need to know where it's not your right and it's not your job as someone who's representing a bunch of people and as a product and as an effort to go off on a rant or, say certain things or phrase things in a certain way. And like more than that, I don't want to like sound like I'm being like an elitist, but it's like part of growing up. Like I used to play League of Legends when I was, like a kid, even when I was like an adult, but like a kid, and people on my team would do stuff that was really upsetting, or maybe I was just upset, who knows, probably both. And I would flame them and I would say really, like abusive, mean stuff. Okay. Not going to deny it happened. And the whole thing is, there's not some magic that happens where, if I played a League of Legends today and I played with some people that were doing that stuff, that I wouldn't be upset. No, I'd probably be very similarly upset as I was back then. The difference is that I grew up and I realized I don't have to reply or like engage with everything that I don't like. And sometimes I can just think in my head the thoughts that I would normally say and not say them. And that's okay, because that's part of being a goddamn adult. Okay. Reactively responding to things that make you feel bad, that's what children do. That's not what that's just not, okay? That's definitely not what adults who run successful businesses do, okay? In fact, the adults who run successful businesses at the biggest degree, they're usually the opposite. They're like sociopaths, and they're like, yeah, I don't care about what you say. Why would I waste my time engaging with you, okay? So the idea that you're both actually engaging, but also like you're reactively arguing with people, man, it's such a bad look. Like, just from the point of view of like, if I was a VC, and I spend a lot of time around VCs, I know a lot of the best VCs. And if I was a VC and I'm like, this is how the CEO of the company is conducting himself, like the best case scenario is like, yeah, I'm going to invest, but like, we're going to replace that guy, right? And that's like, you never want to be in that situation. So on top of just like what I think generally the conduct of a human being should be with other human beings, because like generally I'm like a bit altruistic, fuck me, I guess. As a leader, as the CEO, for God's sakes, of a company that is in its earliest stages, and you cannot do this. You absolutely cannot do this. It doesn't even matter if you're right. He could have been right about everything. They could have put out perfectly reasonable monetization and had an awesome design, and people could have said really, really dumb stuff that makes no sense, and it still wouldn't rationalize him doing the stuff that he's done. And so let's just jump into some examples. Fortunately, he's provided us a lot because he can't stop himself. He has like general impulse control issues or something. On top of the fact that not only is he responding vitriolically to people who criticize him, but on top of that, he's actually banning them. And how do we know he's banning them? He's bragging about it. Okay? I want to say that in the entire time that I was responsible for a forum for my last product that had like thousands of users, hundreds of daily active users from huge companies asking very, very diverse set of questions. In that entire time, we banned one person. And goddamn, did we try not to ban that person, okay? We went through every length possible, including me, a person who was responsible for a lot of very important things at the company, personally getting on a call with that individual and trying to explain to them that we don't want to ban them. But we still had to ban them. One time. And in the matter of a day, this guy's banned like 15 times that, just based on the number of things that he's told us he's done. Not a good look. So let's just look at some of the statements. I'm just going to pull out random ones because honestly, you don't even need to like cherry pick them. So the first one that I just see, doesn't even matter what the person said. No, because monetization feedback is negative 100% of the time for 100% of solving games. Immediate thing. Let's go back to press training. Yeah, don't make absolute statements. Don't make statements you can't back out of. So even if he was right, he's doing the wrong thing by saying something that's so absolute. Now, he's wrong, obviously. I can tell you, as someone who was in this Discord, I saw like probably at least 20% of the feedback being positive, or definitely not negative. If we say not negative, it's like 40%, okay? And even some of the negative feedback was really friendly negative feedback, like really trying to like create a conversation. And a lot of it was from people, a lot of feedback that, came from people that was sort of not positive. Those same people were telling other people who had really mean feedback to stop. And so basically you've said that everybody who's giving feedback is negative. Even if there's a guy that was 2 messages before defending you, nope, that's negative. This statement, again, it's just so emotional. It's the boy who cried. Okay, come on, bro. Dude, I can tell that you're like shivering over there on your desk and like profusely sweating. Like you care way too much. And like, that's good. I want you to care way too much. Care way too much about the balance of the game. Care way too much about the product of the game. For God's sakes, care way too much about making pricing that actually is reasonable and doesn't confuse the shit out of people. Okay? Like, don't care too much about the fact that this person is criticizing your monetization strategy. For, in all honesty, I would respect Reynad like 2,000 times more if he had just done everything that he did with the monetization and then just not engage with people. The actually biggest thing that made me lose respect for him is actually the way that he's engaged, or in the fact that he engaged at all. It's just childish. Now, he makes this last statement, which is, I encourage everyone to vote with their wallet because that's, I mean, it's true, but it's reductive. Like, yeah, at some level, people should vote for their wallet, but like, we know that consumers buy things that aren't a good deal for them. And so like, if he was actually trying to be like a good citizen and like really be like a good champion for the game, that's not what his mentality would be. At least at some level. It should be at some level true, but like it shouldn't be like the end all to be all. But basically he's like, if people pay for it, then I'm right. And again, if his only goal is to make as much money as he can in the short term like time frame, that's correct. I won't argue with it. If his goal is to have long term customer satisfaction and build a sustainable business, he's an idiot. So yeah, let's see. That's the next one. Let's go to the next one. Again, he's doubling down. Spending is the only form of honest player feedback. Let's see. This server is a privilege, not a right. It's a video game Discord for a children's card game. Him making some weird, like, archaic reference to some Yu-Gi-Oh crap that I don't even fully understand, but I'm, like, on the internet enough to know it's a thing. What is a person contributing to the server, I ask as I read. It's just so dumb. This whole thing is just so dumb. Like, he's like that kid in class who argues with the teacher. And I was that kid in class, so, like, I have some experience there. And, like, come on, bro, don't do that. Now, this is the part where it gets really juicy. Now he starts bragging. And the funniest part is the way he does it is by outing all the other mods as being reasonable. Because they're not banning people. Because, yeah, generally the number one response to that's bad to, like, people having negative feedback for your thing is to try to silence them. Especially when Reddit is involved or, like, Discord is involved. Like, yeah, you don't want to do that. It's like the Barbra Streisand effect or whatever, right? So I think that the fact that he's number one, the fact that the CEO of this company is spending time personally banning people, dude, as an investor, again, I'm like, you don't have anything more important to work on? Like, isn't your game in beta, bro? Like, couldn't you be doing something? Like, shouldn't you be like running like an entire like PR launch strategy right now? Like, shouldn't you be on every social media platform monitoring things and like trying to like, shouldn't you be like going on AdSense and setting up a new ad? Like, I could sit here and list genuinely for like over an hour all the individual activities that he could be doing that is a better use of his time than non-constructively responding to people in the Discord. And again, like, my former CEO of the company I worked at actually was kind of, he was the positive case of this, where he was addicted to responding to customers, but he was like the one who's like actually supporting them. He would never, ever say anything negative to a customer. If anyone said something like this in a chat that he was part of, he would just totally ignore it, okay? And genuinely, he wouldn't care. It would just be like irrelevant to him. But he would be spending his time. And I still criticized him. Other executives still criticized him for spending his time doing that because, like, as a, you know, champion of the company, like, arguably he's the CEO, his time is the most important. He can't spend time doing that. Like, he hired people to do that. They just can't rationalize it. But, like, I mean, if you're gonna do it, man, like, you want to do it like him. Like, you want to be the one who's like, every customer is like, wow, I talked to the CEO yesterday, he personally helped me out with this like mundane thing. And for what it's worth, that happened all the time, and it got us a ton of customers and literally led us to directly making sales for large amounts of money. He's not doing this. So, bro, you're the CEO. I don't know anything about game companies, but I know a little bit about companies and about like running companies. And like, dude, if this is the best of use of your time, maybe you shouldn't be the CEO. Okay. Now, next one. Again, I'm not even like, I don't even remember them. I just like randomly picking them out because they're so easy. So this one, he's trying to like, oh man, yeah, thanks, I agree, bro. Thanks for, you know, seeing it my way. But then the second half is like, it's literally, if there was a single sentence that I could show another person who didn't understand what the concept of spite is, it's this. Like, he is a textbook definition of what a spiteful person looks like. Again, I'll tell you, in press training, they actually don't cover that. They don't ever say don't be spiteful to the people that are paying you money and trying to ask or give you criticism. The reason why is because I've never met a single person who takes press training who's stupid enough to do it. I just genuinely haven't. Where I normally see that sort of behavior is Twitch chat. So basically what I've come to the conclusion of from all of this is that he's stuck in a world where he thinks real life is Twitch chat, and it's not. So he has his response. Now, on top of the fact that, like, even if he was right, it's just not a good look to be spiteful as a leader of a company, he's going after an entire, again, this is an absolute statement. I can guarantee you that not every person who's on Reddit is feeling the same way about the monetization as the ones that he's calling out. Yet he's just, like, basically called all of them out as equals. He's indicted all of them. And that's just, it's just, why would you do that? It's just obviously, it's a statement that a person who is non-emotional doesn't make because it's just clearly untrue. And again, this is like a metoo.com sort of situation, like, or sorry, imright.com. MeToo.com is very different, but yeah, imright.com. So like, he's just self-validating. It's an echo chamber. Like, he's ignored that like 90% of the people, not just on Reddit, by the way, but like the entire Discord, yeah, it actually looks worse than the Reddit. But he's like, no, this one guy was like, bro, you're doing okay. So you know what that means? That means that I'm right. Let's see. Yeah, he's just saying more and more. Again, he never adds anything constructive. He's basically just like reactively doing tactical fights with people, not actually adding any new. Okay. Yeah. So basically, just more and more crap. And now, okay, this is old. Yeah, let's see. Is there a way to new? Why is it showing me old ones if it's new? Okay. Again, doubling down. Reliably dishonest. Can you show me the case study about this? Can you show me like the industry analysis where like people say that feedback about monetization is always lying? Because again, basically what he said is that anyone in this Discord or Reddit or anywhere basically who's written any feedback about his monetization choices is a liar. That's actually what that statement says. Here's another great one. Again, if you've commented on monetization as a paying customer of his game, you are a fly. You're like a fly attracted to shit, actually, which is, I guess, marginally worse. I don't know what good things a fly could be attracted to, but probably shit is one of the worst ones I could think of. Let's see, again, like he's not, like, just to be clear about like what a good response would have been. He could have not changed anything. He could have not made any compromises, but just been like, wow, guys, I really understand your feedback. And this is like, we really take your feedback seriously. And, I don't think we're going to change anything right now because like, this is something we want to test out. Like someone even wrote a fake response he should have written in the Discord. And obviously like everyone ignored it because like, yeah, he's not going to write that response. But that's the whole thing. It's like, I'm not even telling you, dude, that you should like not do what you're doing. I'm just saying you shouldn't act like a child. It's just so sad. So yeah, like this one, again, being spiteful and vindictive, I actually do remember it. Someone makes a statement. Again, it's like 1/10 or less of the feedback is kind of aligned with this right now, which is like, make it so subscribe people start with an enchant multi-catalyst item. Basically being like double down and make it so people really are pay to win. And then, of course, he responds, yeah, maybe we'll apply this, which obviously he's joking. He's very funny. Reynad should be a comedian, actually. He's like one of the funniest people I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, like, dude. I hope to God this game works out well for you because like you do not have much success in another career that has any sort of public facing aspect. Jeez Louise. Again, sometimes he actually makes these random interesting comments, which I don't really fully understand how to interpret, but apparently stained glass window is really strong. Probably would have bet that. It does feel very strong. Says, I wish people would spend more time thinking about how the system plays out over time because that's where it's strongest, yet does not explain that in any way, shape, or form. Even though many people have been making the opposite argument, that it's actually going to make it worse over time. Um, Everyone tries framing this as that's just not how the game works. This just confirms to me that nobody on the team actually used Beast of Burden when they initially released it. It's just obvious. Like, there's no way that someone who actually made the game where they released unnerfed Beast of Burden could make a statement saying that this is true. It's just dumb. Again, he's saying everyone alive is stupid. Nobody's honest about it. I mean, I'll be the first one to say I'm stupid. So at least I failed that check. I mean, saying everyone is alive is stupid. I mean, I definitely know people smarter than you, dude. like I'm not saying I'm smarter than you, but I definitely know like at least 10 people that I will like bet all my savings on that they're smarter than you are in like any dimension. Apparently, pay to win is a slur. I feel like, I'm not like a snowflake type person, but I feel like many people, if they were, would actually be like, yeah, you're like actually appropriating the term slur by saying the word slur in the context of pay to win, because yeah, obviously it's not a slur. This thing about you're only making like progress, well, it's not true because you have to pay for it. So the only way that you actually get ranked tickets now, unless you're willing to pay, is by paying. There's no way for you to get ranked tickets in this game unless you pay money. It's totally 1,000% impossible, as far as I understand. Now, it's not totally clear. I think from the thing, maybe I'm wrong and you don't actually have to pay to get the ticket. Premium pass exclusive. It doesn't, maybe that's actually not required. So if I'm wrong about that, I'll feel free to walk that back. But generally speaking, this idea that, this change where now you get the tickets through the prize pass is better than getting a free ranked ticket a day and having a free ranked ticket if you won 10 in a casual. At minimum, it's not obvious. Maybe it's true. The only positive that I will tell you I see is that it like gives less of an incentive for people to do really annoying shit in casual games, like concede instantly and all of that. So yeah, and then again, basically this one is another great one. Yeah, people are actually quoting him on Twitter. Friendly reminder that the Bazaar is free to play is no pay to win nonsense. Skill matters, not your wallet. Yeah, I would totally say that this update is against the spirit of that comment. Would I have been mad if all they did was break it and then give an explanation of why? No, I mean, I would have been annoyed. Would have affected my desire to play the game at some level, but I wouldn't be here making a goddamn video about it, wasting my precious time. But yeah, I mean, it does go against the spirit, and the fact that he's so unself-aware that it's like fueling him. You can tell that his source of energy in this world is other people being unhappy about the choices he's made that he feels like he's right about. Which, bro, you need a therapist. Like, you need serious professional help. And I'm not saying like you're like on suicide watch or something, but I can tell you if this is the way you derive joy in your life, that's not a healthy mindset. Like, it's not sustainable, man. Like, you're gonna be salty and sad and like probably have some really not great people around you for like the rest of your life. So yeah, I don't want to spend any more time on this than I should, because it honestly just makes me feel bad reading the stuff that he writes, because he's so negative and he's so condescending, and honestly he's just so like reactive and like doesn't really think things through. So yeah, I think my general point is Bazaar was an amazing game. I loved playing it so far. One of the most fun games. The monetization strategy and the way they've rolled it out is terrible. The pricing model is confusing and unnecessarily complex. It is also not good for keeping the game's competitive integrity intact. The way that it was released and the way that it's been discussed is beyond bad. And specifically the behavior of Reynad single-handedly has made me never want to play this game again. Or honestly, ever have anything to do with Reynad. Like, it's funny because I didn't really know much about Reynad. Like, maybe I watched him play Hearthstone once or twice. Like, I knew of him before this game. And I, on, the course of being on Reddit, saw many people kind of having these very strong negative opinions about the way that he behaves as a person. And I didn't understand it. In fact, I ignored it, which is kind of like a counter argument to this fact that everyone on Reddit is the same. I was just kind of like, I don't know, people say shit. I now understand, like, retroactively every negative comment I've ever seen about Reynad. And man, were they right. Man, Reddit is right sometimes. Let me tell you. In the case of like the criticism they had for Reynad about being like a like a child and like reactively being mad about things and like just being toxic, holy shit, they're right. Like one day, that's all it took. Point proven. So yeah, that's where I'm going to end it. I don't know if anyone finds this interesting, but I figured, share my 2 cents. As of right now, I haven't bought anything. Obviously, I want to play the game again. I love the game, so I'm like, I have to resist the urge to play it. But as of right now, I don't think, I don't know. I feel kind of like I won't end up playing. I definitely won't end up playing anywhere near as much. But I think if I can get through like the next 2 days without playing, I think I'm kind of just done with it. So yeah, don't let that influence your choice. Do what you want. Do what makes you happy. Do what's gonna keep you satisfied in your life. But please think about the way that the companies that you're paying and endorsing treat you and consider you.